What's up, and welcome back to Talking Nutrition. Today's a solo episode 65, where we're going to talk to you about the 5 keys to creating real results and achieving long-term success. I feel like there's a lot of hate these days on anything that requires effort, and we want to talk about this. That's kind of like one of the biggest things here. Like, we need to put in the work. No, all joking aside, though, like, we talk about our strategies, our systems, and kind of like our sustainable approach, but I feel like there's way more kind of like almost like behind the scenes or maybe below that as a foundation that allows you to make those things happen, to create that strategy, to use the systems properly, and also, of course, continue when you're not motivated, right? We're looking for a sustainable approach, and we can look into those things and we can share this stuff, but we still need to walk the path, right? There's a quote from the Matrix that goes, there's a difference between knowing the path and walking the path. Knowing being like the knowledge, right? We can know how something works, nutrition wise, fitness, whatever, which is great. Obviously, we want to have the knowledge, it's super key. But knowing doesn't get you results. Like, doing the thing gets you results. So today I want to talk a little bit more about how to apply these things, and also just long term, like how to kind of stick to this, and what it takes to be successful long term. Because we need to remember too that long term results require a long term approach. Let me say that one more time. Long term results require a long term approach. Now, before we get into this episode, remember, do me a massive favor. You can support the show by dropping us a quick 5-star rating and or review, whether you want to do that on Spotify or Apple or both. Do whatever you want to do. I'm sure the other apps have like rating and stuff as well, but I'm not too sure from personal experience. Either way, I feel like Spotify and Apple are the biggest ones. I know Apple, especially in the US. So do us a massive favor, drop a quick review. It takes maybe 30 seconds, right? If you open up your app right now, you go ahead and do that. We're also on YouTube, by the way, with videos. If you want to subscribe there, that would be great. Of course, feel free to comment on any of the videos with follow-up questions too. If you want to submit a question, you can either do that directly here via Spotify. You can do that via Instagram, just DM me. Go to YouTube, comment on any of the videos if you want to start a discussion. Great. Like, that's what we're here for. We're not just here to kind of give you this and kind of like be like, okay, cool. Well, let me just go on to the next podcast. Like, now I want you to really get into this stuff. And that's really what today's episode is about. Initially, when I got this idea for this episode, it was almost going to be a rant about the saying that's, I don't want to do diets, or, I don't want to do something strict. I want to make it a lifestyle. Like, making it a lifestyle. That it gets under my skin sometimes. I'll explain why. Because yes, we're making this a lifestyle. However, if we're looking at different phases, fat loss phases, etc., that's not a lifestyle per se. So we need to remember that there are trade-offs. So let's get into it, shall we? There's a lot of hate on diets, a lot of hate on tracking, macros. You always hear that. There's so much pushback. My friend tried macros. They tried tracking calories. My colleague, my family member, I did, whatever, whoever. And it didn't work. Didn't work for me. Didn't work for them. Someone saw me tracking and gave me like a nasty remark, right? Or they told me it was obsessive. And when you get those comments, it makes you doubt yourself, which is frustrating. You don't need that. But there's a lot of hate on that. A lot of hate on dieting and being a little bit stricter with your nutrition. And I will say this, we don't promote very strict diets at all. But there is a time and place when we have a serious goal where we want to put in the work. And especially these days in 2023, I feel like we're a little soft. And that's an issue. I really mean that. I'm legit worried about that in many, many ways. Personal development, work ethic, there's a lot. But we need to remember that as much as we're almost wired now or trained to have anything we need at our convenience, whatever that is, we can literally look up anything on this phone right here. We have access to everything instantly. Amazon, right? Netflix, whatever we would need, we can order food. We don't even have to leave the house. It's all very convenient. But let me tell you this. That doesn't take away that you reaching your goals is going to require effort, and that's never going to change. Never. if you want real long-term success in your health and fitness journey, it's going to require work. I'm not going to sugarcoat it. And as you already know, like this podcast, like we give it to you the way it is, right? Removed from feelings, opinions, whatever. Yes, we're here to talk to you about stuff, but we're also here to do the work, which is why we can't quit on these kind of things. So let me just open my window real quick because I'm already getting warm. So there we go. But we can't quit on this stuff. We can't quit when things get difficult. We can't quit when we run into a week, a day, an evening, a moment where we feel less motivated, when we feel like, tracking, I couldn't find this one food, I'm going to just stop altogether. Fuck it, right? I'm not motivated, I might as well not do it. Hey, seeing the skill go up a little bit, fuck it. It's not for me. Like, no, we can't quit. We cannot quit weeks, even months, or even years after not seeing something work. I will say years is maybe over exaggerated in terms of like health and fitness, but if we're looking at some serious issues, maybe it can take years even. Good news is that for most people, you listening likely, is going to be a matter of months, which is really fucking cool. But let's remember, right, that effort, like we need to make sure that we put in the effort. And this is where I don't think we should quit anytime we're met with friction or when we feel uncomfortable. Like, no, like let's look at our effort. Is it actually us getting uncomfortable and feeling that friction and it's difficult? Or is it a reflection of the effort that we're putting in? And of course, I'm not here assuming, like on this podcast, which obviously, right, I'm talking to myself here, just generally speaking. But these are confronting questions that we need to ask ourselves. And by the way, if your effort is great, amazing, cool, then that question doesn't go for you, right? Maybe we're working on the wrong things, which also would not be your fault. Because if you look at on social media, it's kind of crazy. All the stuff that's, being thrown around in terms of nutrition advice. And there's a lot of crazy shit out there. Not a lot of helpful stuff. And the basic things that we talk about, right? The stuff that actually works is way less sexy to promote, which is why typically on social media, if you look around, that's why the crazy stuff usually gets the attention. But that's okay. At least you're listening and at least we can help you. And at least you can then help someone in your area or circle. But we cannot decide too soon that it's time to quit. And I will say that. Now, kind of a quick recap on our 3S framework that we use for creating results: strategy, systems, and sustainability. Strategy meaning we're not just going to jump into a fat loss phase. We're not just going to say, hey, cool, we're going to sign you up. And the very next day, here's your weight loss calories. Here's your meal plan. No, fuck that. We need to go about this in a more strategic way. We need to have 3 phases for that. First of all, being we're going to get you ready. I'm going to get you ready for the road ahead, meaning just how you would go on a trip, on vacation or adventure. You're not just going to show up at the airport with no ticket, with no luggage, right? With no plan. Maybe no plan. Like I've done that. That's actually kind of cool. But, right? You want to prepare for the trip. That's what we're doing here. What are your current habits like? What do we need to take care of first? Are we dealing with emotional eating, etc., stress? Not being structured with our nutrition, training, all those kind of things. What habits need to be created before we get started? It's a lot of stuff that's very important because I feel like a lot of the reasons, or one of the reasons why a lot of people struggle reaching their goals, especially with that New Year stuff where they try to change everything all at once, is for that reason. They try to figure it out while they're also in a deficit, while they're already hungry, and then we're not eating enough protein and fiber. And it just starts to snowball from there, and not in a good way. Systems, we need systems to be successful. We cannot just go without tracking, right? And this is one of those things where, yes, I know tracking is not a lifestyle thing. That's why throughout that strategy, we do use it to, prepare you to get you the results, which is the second phase, by the way. But then long term, our third phase, maintaining your results. That's why we even step away from tracking. And that needs to be practiced as well. But I think with this whole intuitive eating stuff, it sounds great. I know that. But the people who promote that now didn't get the bodies they got by intuitively eating. Like, no, usually they've tracked for many, many years, a decade sometimes. And then they find this thing where, hey, okay, well, I probably took tracking a little too far. Now I'm going to step away from it and I'm going to promote it, which is great. Don't get me wrong. That's totally great. And I want people to be able to do without tracking eventually, but not initially. That's not how you create results. We get the results first and then we can step away from it. If you don't want to call it intuitive or not, either way, we've learned from tracking. We used it as a tool and then we stepped away from it. That's how we do this. Another system is very important, which, by the way, also, right, let's not worry about calories burned and stuff. Like, let's actually look at your metrics. So we need the objective data there, your tracking, but also your weight, measurements and photos and all that, so that we can make better decisions. We need all these tools. Like, we're not just using that for fun. It's not just like, hey, this is just one way to do it. No, this is the best way to do it. I can pretty confidently say that because I've seen a lot of people overcome their struggles and use this stuff to their advantage. So I know it works. But we'll get to the 5 keys that will unlock this whole process in a bit. Because let me tell you this too, it needs to be learned and applied, and it takes time sometimes. That could be pretty quick for you, it could take a little while. And it's okay. But other systems we can look at, habit creation. How much are we actually establishing a new habit? If we know, for example, something simple as drinking water or hitting a certain amount of veggies per day, whatever it may be, maybe steps. Can we start tracking something? Once again, with the data, can we have a little checklist so that we can get results? Because if anyone listening read the book Atomic Habits, I'm a massive fan of a checklist for that reason, for that book, because of that book, I should say. I listened to, or I listened to it. I read it, actually both, the audiobook and I read it, actually around the same time. But either way, I listened to it, I read it, and I really like the checklist thing that really stuck with me, and I've been using that ever since for years now. And we just set that goal: hey, 1, 2, or maybe 3 on the higher end, but like one thing that we want to take off for the day, check off. What do we need to get done to move forward? And I think anyone listening right now, I think if you think about this stuff for a sec, you just gotta slow down, create a little bit of moment of stillness, and you think about this stuff and you think like, hey, what's kind of like one thing that I know I could do better? Let's just start there, right? And we use a habit tracker, and then we just, for the full month, like I'm currently doing this. I'm currently 22 days because I actually started on the last day of July already. Currently 22 days into my no caffeine month. I have the same thing. I have a little checklist where it's like no caffeine, one day at a time. And that's what I want you to focus on. It is like a daily effort. And that's one of those keys here which I'm already kind of giving away, but that's one of the things we need to remember. Like, it's a daily action every single day. It's not a moment, it's an ongoing process. And let's remember too what a process is. It's not just doing the thing. It's not just, well, just try again. And this is one of the things that's wrong in the fitness space. It's like, hey, you sign up, and whether it's a meal plan or one of those apps where you just get your updated weekly recipe, and then maybe like a 1-sentence email, which is very wrong, by the way. But anyway, with that, it's like it's all on you. And if you don't manage and you don't get results, then you just try harder and you just try again, or you just eat even less, or you just add more cardio. And yes, that's true, but that's only one part of the process, the doing. We also need to reflect and catch ourselves and be proactive in terms of figuring out what's going well, what needs more work, how do we move forward, and then lastly, who will I ask for help? So there's really 3 factors there, 3 parts of the process. It's doing the thing, it's learning from the process, and then of course reaching out for help. Because at the end of the day, it's very difficult to figure things out on your own, especially in this whole nutrition thing. Ask people for help. And that doesn't even have to be a coach. Like, if you DM me, I'm not going to try to sell you shit. If you just want to have a conversation, hit me up. I'm here to help. Happy to help. Because I know from personal experience, how frustrating it can be to be overweight, or maybe not necessarily even overweight, but just like not knowing how to create the results, and then going online and being more confused with from like so many different like opinions and all the misinformation, and then the fucking carnivore clowns online and all that. Like it's frustrating. So hit me up, ask me for help, ask someone else for help, someone like a coach online in a space who you resonate with. But also do your due diligence and like look into that person, do your own research almost, right? But again, let's have a conversation. Be okay with asking for help. And this really could be one of those, parts, which, well, we'll talk about it in a little bit, but it's kind of related to the last one. But okay. Where was I with our systems? Yeah, self-reflection. I kind of touched on it just now as well. Self-reflection, like we do want to work on this. We want to have preferably daily moments where we sit down with ourselves. I like to call it sitting with our own shit. Like just being brutally honest with ourselves. And that's probably the most uncomfortable part of this whole health and fitness thing, is like, can we sit with our own stuff, work through it as well, but also just objectively look at, hey, today, did I do my best? If not, hey, why not? Ask those questions. Ask yourself those questions. That's how we work through stuff. Are there any obstacles on your way? Likely there are. Cool. What are we going to do with that? Are we going to work through them? Are we going to use them as learning opportunities? Or are we going to kind of feel bad about ourselves and, right, use it as a reason to not do anything, to not move forward, to say, hey, it's too difficult, or I can't. Like, no, let's be proactive and figure it out. And I think that self-reflection is going to help you there, because that's going to be one of those things that will help you kind of catch yourself and notice before the week ends. Hey, for example, today is Monday, right? And I do this every single day. At the end of the day, I go through my journal. I made a quick to-do list this morning. What did I do? And then I have a couple questions that I ask myself. But let's say, for example, it's Wednesday and we catch ourselves saying, okay, I'm actually not, keeping up with the stuff I said I was going to do. Cool. Or, I'm struggling with something. That's fine. Let's then slow down and try to figure that out. And if we do this on a daily basis, it could be literally like 5 to 10 minutes if you wanted to. Do a quick meditation journal, have a little bit of a moment of stillness, just sit with yourself, or mindfulness, whatever you want to call it. It doesn't even have to be meditation, but create some space for yourself to figure these things out. And then you can overcome your obstacles, but you need to make a point of doing that. And that's difficult. It's confronting. Because I think deep down, as much as we can learn from other people, we can get the accountability, you are only still kind of like with yourself in terms of like actually doing the thing, if that makes sense. Like no one is going to be there doing your workout for you or eating your food for you. I mean, I wouldn't mind, but and tracking the food for you. Like, no, you need to do that yourself. And no one hears your thoughts. Only you do. And no one hears the excuses that you make, which, by the way, I'm not blaming you. I'm not judging you. Like, we all do that. I do that. I catch myself too. But as long as we're aware, we don't have to listen to that voice, or at least we can have a conversation with them, if that makes sense. Self-reflection, super key. I like daily. I like weekly, especially. We do that with all of our clients. Hey, what's your effort like? Rate that 1 to 5. Why that rating? What's your weekly wins? What are you most proud of doing, right? Could be anything good, like anything small that's positive. And then next week, what needs to happen to move forward? And then how will you achieve that? And then lastly, how can I help you with this? That's literally what I ask in my check-ins. Because that way we reflect and we are proactive about moving forward, and how, especially. We're in the moment. I like to do monthly personally. I like to do quarterly, yearly. And now I even have some longer term goals. Now, that's kind of like our 3S framework. But kind of going back, because I do need to like bring this up a little bit, to kind of things that bother me in the space. We talked a little bit about intuitive eating. And this is part the space, as in like PTs and coaches and whatever, and part things that I see people say in general, like making it a lifestyle, that thing. I do get where it comes from, but I've seen claims like, oh, I don't track because I use habits. I mean, what do you mean, like using habits? No, we create habits. It's a process, but habit is not something that you decide to use. Like it's a long term thing. A habit is something that's so ingrained in the way you do things that it's just part of you, and it takes time. So we can't just use that. I do get the idea. I get what they're coming from, or where, but we need to still use tracking or some kind of data to learn from objectively, to then eventually be able to do without. Because I think usually it's more of an excuse just because we're not good at tracking yet, for example, right? Or we tried something and it was a little bit difficult. No, like we need to work through difficult things. Anything needs to be easy. Don't get me wrong. Like, yes, we want this to be as doable as possible. I want to make sure that this whole, when you sign up with us, for example, we're going to make sure that your plan is tailored to you, and we're going to figure out how to make this work for you and your schedule. That's an ongoing thing, but like we're going to make sure that tracking is going to be a 5-minute thing, maybe 10 minutes per day. We all have 10 minutes. We're going to make sure that food prep gets easier. You're going to save time. You're going to save money. We're going to make things easier. I'm going to educate you on every single step that we take. We're going to walk you through a course so that you know exactly how things work. But don't think that you're going to sign up with me or any other coach, for that matter, and that we're good. Like, no, like when you sign up, like that's when the work begins. That's something I think isn't said enough. Maybe it's like, now we got to understand, like when you sign up, like get ready to do the work, because we're only just getting started. I'm here to guide you, help you, hold you accountable, but that's when the real work begins. So if we think about health of fitness and for example being overweight or anything, really just struggling with emotional eating or whatever, maybe anything, nutrition, right? A lot of times people struggle with that for years, often decades. It is going to take effort. Like we need to work through this stuff, and it takes time. And the the apps, where it's just like your calories, or you just get that weekly recipe, or you get some new recipes. Like, sure, it's cool to get some inspiration, but like, what are we learning from this? Like, are we working through stuff? We get so many people who finally get the help they deserved, and that's not because we do something different with macros or specific foods or special diet plans or whatever. Like, no, it's actually very basic. And that's one of the things too that I feel like there's like this idea that it needs to be this airy fairy fucking, right, all the meals are like colorful, and we're looking at different cakes and all that, and we're looking at sugar-free brownies and all this stuff. Like, no, like we need to eat real fucking food, where you eat some fruits and vegetables, and you eat things like rice and potatoes every now and then, right? And maybe some whole wheat bread or other similar products, or meat, fish, dairy products. It's all very basic stuff. And I'm totally just kind of going on, on a little mini rant here, but let's get to the point. We need to understand that to create real results, to be successful long term, is not a quick little a diet or a meal plan or specific recipes. Like, no, it's all going to come down to these 5 things. And I touched on a few of them already, but let's break them down. First of all, it's kind of 2 in 1, but okay, time and patience. If we struggle with something for a very long time, we need to understand that it's going to take at least a little while to fix that as well, to recover from that as well. Now, here's the good news: decades, years of unhealthy habits, unhealthy food, being overweight, for example, can luckily be reversed in a matter of at least half a year. For some people, a little bit more, and that's okay. Some people 1 to 2 years. It really depends how much we want to lose. But it is much less than the time we spend being in that state, which is great news. I was very heavy for a little while, and it took me way less to lose it, which is really cool. If we do this the right way, it's very doable. So that's good news. But either way, we're still stuck with that mindset of I have, the I'm gonna do the quick restrictive diet just before vacation. I recently talked to someone. They're like, "Oh yeah, I'm just gonna do like a quick, I'm just gonna do a quick diet because I'm gonna go on vacation to Spain, and I just want to be dry for my vacation, right?" And it was like a week and a half or something. We're still stuck with that mindset, which is because of marketing and just shit we see online and even in magazines and TV and just mainstream like news channels. It's terrible advice. If we look at what stuff that actors and stuff put out, it's crazy. Okay, it will take time, no matter what. It's going to take time to work on these things. If we go back to strategy, getting you ready for the road ahead, building those habits, getting even used to self-reflection, going through your transformation. Hey, a fat loss phase is going to be at least, for most people, 2 to 4 months. And then we need to spend time on maintenance, which is going to be another 2 to 3, 4 months. And then we're going to maybe do a round two, depending on the person. Hey, if you want to build muscle, get ready to do work for at least 4 months plus for you to see an actual decent amount of muscle. And these are things that are not shared enough. That's why we have a 6 month minimum commitment, because it takes time. It's about that. It's about getting you the results. And I tell people too, like, that's, to be honest with you, like, that's the only reason. It takes time. We can get you some fat loss, yes, for sure. We can say you would sign up for 3 months, and we've done that in the past, but say we would do that, and you would have a preparation phase maybe for like a month, and then a 2 month cut. Okay, cool, you get some results, but what about after? Like, don't you also want to learn what happens afterwards? That's why I said, like, hey, we're not going to do less than 6 anymore, for that reason, because it's simply not right. Because then I'm kind of leaving you with only half of the work done, and then you still don't know what to do. And it's the lack of exit strategy I feel like that people are missing. But okay, that is it for time and patience. It takes time. We cannot, get around that. It's not going to be six pack in 6 weeks. Like, no, it's going to be 6 months or more. you know Second key, effort. We need to put in the work. Yes, we're going to make sure that we set you up with the systems and the strategies and all the tools that you need. And we have cheat sheets and the whole course. And there's so much stuff that we use to kind of make it easier for our clients. We have a lot of free resources. We do this podcast. We continue to educate you through our channels, social media. At the end of the day, it's going to come down to effort. It's going to come down to effort, not just knowing how things work. And that's not just a week of effort. That's doing it every single day, or trying every single day, doing our best every single day. And then we fall off every now and then. That's cool. That's fine. It's normal. We're all human. But what do you do then? Which brings me to my next point, having a growth mindset. Meaning, can we learn from stuff as we go? Can we put in the effort? Yes. But can we also look at, okay, what needs more work? How can we continue to improve? And let's not just focus on the process, but also on the other factors that I mentioned earlier. Also, like learning from the process, collecting feedback, doing something with that, growing, right? And potentially asking for help, but doing whatever we can do to become better and be proactive there. And I've been reading a lot about this. You see the book in the background, maybe. Actually, no, I have it in the living room. Mindset, great book. Definitely recommend that. But if you want to learn more about mindset, actually, you know what? Like, check that book out, Mindset by Carol Dweck. Very good, very solid. Talks about a lot about growth mindset. But okay, I think with that, we need to remember that we're not going to get it right all the time, and that's okay, as long as we keep learning. And my next point allows you to keep learning, and that's data. We need the data. In my opinion, we need to use objective data to get actual results. If you do not track, we are guessing at best. If you don't want to weigh yourself, we have no idea if you are moving forward. I agree that the weight is not the actual goal. It shouldn't be. However, if we use body measurements, photos. We can see if you're losing body fat and not just weight. Here's the thing too. When you go through a weight loss phase or a bulk, let's call it a lean gaining phase, we want to control how fast you lose weight or control how fast you gain weight. That's why we use the data. It's way more about that. If you lose at the right rate, we make sure that you maximize your results while maintaining muscle. And if you gain, we make sure that you mostly put on muscle and not just get a whole bunch of body fat, which is what a lot of people do when they dirty bulk. So we need the data. We can use it. And I like to compare this to, like, spending. Going back to tracking, always getting a bad rep. Like, people kind of, talk shit about the tracking apps, but if you have spending issues, like, we're not going to blame the bank app either. Like, no, instead, we're going to do this. We're going to open the bank app. We're going to look at our balance, and we're going to go down that little list and look at our expenses. Do we have shit that doesn't have to be there? Our Netflix, HBO, all the subscriptions that are piling up, big expenses on stuff that we don't really need, essential things, etc. That's how you want to do this, right? We use the data to learn, and then we step away from it. And maybe going back to, like, tracking steps, for example, something we will be talking a lot more about very soon. Spoiler alert. But with that, it's not even that we need to hit that 10K every single day forever. Like, no, we use the step count as a target to work towards, to create the active individual that you want to become. And then once you are active and you just kind of are someone who moves a lot, which takes time to create, we're good. And it doesn't have to be 10K, by the way. Maybe even 8 is great, or 9. It depends on your job. But somewhere around there is less about hitting the actual steps, and it's more about creating that habit, which maybe even turns into making it, in quotes, a lifestyle. Because going back to strategy, we have the preparation phase, we transform and we maintain. That last phase, that I would say could be a lifestyle phase where we, in quotes, make it a lifestyle. That's where we can be like, okay, cool, we've learned so much from the process, we can now just kind of chill. And that's why in our program, we really emphasize the importance of maintenance, aka just eating enough. I know there's a lot of bodybuilders out there in space, a lot of bigger names who I look up to, have a lot of respect for, but they basically say, no, you should only be cutting or bulking, nothing in between. And I get that. I know that more time spent in the deficit is less, chances to build muscle. I totally agree. But that's from a bodybuilding standpoint. People we work with, like yourself listening maybe, we're not necessarily looking to be as jacked and shredded as possible. We want to look like we work out. We want to get awesome results. Don't get me wrong, like, we can get you some really good results. We help you perform better, feel better, improve your health, lose body fat, build muscle, even after having tried just about everything in the world, or at least, even after thinking that you've tried it all. But at the end of the day, like, we still have jobs, and I like to at least assume that most people listening are going to go with more of a lifestyle approach eventually, which is why we want to have good results, but then go to maintenance. And in my experience, I think most people, generally speaking, who are maybe like super into their fitness journey and very excited about the process and continuing, to improve and all that, we have those people. I think for the vast majority, continuing to be either bulking or cutting, I don't think that's smart either. So we want to be maintaining. Going back to my point, being at that lifestyle maintenance. I like that phase for a lot of people. And that's the only place where I would say that's where we can make it a lifestyle. Going to my last point, accountability and guidance. So far, the 5 keys to creating real results and achieving long-term success. First of all, time and patience. Second, effort. Third, growth mindset. Fourth, data. And then fifth, accountability and guidance. It's hard to figure this out on your own. It's hard to do this on your own because we all let ourselves get away with too much shit. And I do that personally. I have coaches as my clients, as well as registered dietitians who know their shit. We all need accountability. We all need guidance. We all need an objective set of eyes who can tell us, hey, you know what? Like, you're actually doing great. Or, hey, you know what? This needs more work. Or, hey, I recognize this pattern. Hey, do you want to talk about this stuff? The accountability, having someone to check up on you, having someone to guide you is fucking massive. And that's the biggest thing in coaching. Again, the things that we promote, promote, I don't even want to say promote, but like things that we preach, I guess, it's all basic. Eat some veggies, eat some fruits, drink some water, go outside for a walk, right? Get your workouts in. It sounds super basic. It is super basic. It's also effective. And it's more effective than all the fad diets out there and all the crazy shit. So I hope this kind of gave you a little bit of an insight in my approach to nutrition and fitness. And I know this was maybe more half of like a rant. A little bit about also stuff that I don't agree with, how things are going in the space. A couple of misconceptions, a little bit about our approach. But I wanted to talk about this because without time and patience and effort and a growth mindset and data and accountability and guidance, I don't think we're going to get really far. I think we all need guidance and accountability, at least in the beginning. That being said, let's wrap it up for today. If you are looking for more help, feel free to reach out. I will drop a link below where you can request a free call with me. No strings attached. I want you to know that this is not a sales call. This is a free call for you. Let's call it like 20 minutes maybe, where you get a chance to share your goals and you just have a chat. And let's see if we can help you. And if so, and if you want to look into coaching, great. Then maybe we can talk about that. But first, I just want to give you that opportunity to give you access to me for a free call and say, hey, you know what? Like, let's talk about where you're currently at and what needs to happen. And maybe you don't know. Okay, that's cool. Let me help you here because I can give you the accountability and guidance, even if that's on one of those free calls. And then if you're like, hey, you know what? I want to try this coaching thing out. Cool. Awesome. Happy to have you. But either way, I wanted to let you know about your opportunity because I don't think I've brought that up quite a bit, or quite enough, I should say. And it is there. So I will drop it down below in the show notes. Have a great week. I will be back with you on Thursday with, I think it's part 4 by now. Is it 3 or 4? I really have to look it up now. It's actually pretty terrible. No, it's part 4 of the principles of nutrition. So we're almost there. And we're going to talk about metabolism and flexible dieting. And then the last episode will be next week on Thursday, which is going to be flexible dieting, one of my favorite topics to talk about. In the meantime, I'm working on a lot of really cool guests. Of course, Christine comes back every 2 weeks just about, but we have a lot of people coming up as guests, a lot of really cool guests. Very much looking forward to sharing more knowledge with you, diving into more topics. One that we're going to talk about is actually flexible dieting. Another topic that we're going to talk about is building muscle for females specifically, and trying not to just be on those super low calorie diets like the 1200 calorie stuff. So mindset work, like there's a whole lot of cool guys coming up. So very much looking forward to sharing this with you. Once again, thank you for listening. Thanks for letting me ramble and rant. And once again, if you enjoyed the show, do me a massive favor. Drop me a quick rating on Spotify or Apple. Highly appreciate that. And as always, have a great week, and then I'll talk to you very soon.